Hello and welcome to Tim Connolly Drums. Today's video is a sad video, but a celebration of life video as well. Today is 1 year to the day, September 27th, 2023. We lost a truly legendary drummer, legendary teacher, and legendary friend. Probably my best friend, Dom Famularo. The man was truly gifted in so many ways. It's literally impossible for me to get on here in a short video to tell you everything that I experienced with Dom, because I studied with him and knew him and became, good friends with him for over 16 years. So it's hard for me to shove into a little video all the experiences that I spent, all the time and experiences that I spent with Dom. He was truly an incredible person. For those of you that never got a chance to meet Dom or experience Dom, he's an experience. He was magic in a human form. Explosive personality in the best possible way. He was the most caring human being. He was the most loving human being. And he genuinely was the happiest person that I ever knew. I can't even, it's like trying to explain the guy. You had to have experienced him. Now, for any of you watching this, if you got a chance to meet Dom, please put in your comments how you met him, when you met him, if you can remember the details of meeting him. Maybe you studied with him, you got a chance to actually take a lesson with him. Even if you only shook his hand and said, "Hi, Dom, I want to hear about it," because I know that Dom touched so many people. It's unbelievable. He was the world's global drumming ambassador. He traveled the world teaching drums, doing drum clinics, and also doing motivational speaking. He was an amazing speaker, and he was uplifting. I'm actually getting chills talking about him right now. It's almost like he's here in the room with me. Dom and I were very close. I'm just going to give you a little bit of history here quickly. I first met Dom way back in the 90s. I can't remember exactly when. I'm going to guess around 94, 95. And I went to a drum clinic, and it was Steve Smith, Louis Belson, and Dom Famularo. At that clinic, that was the first time I'd ever actually seen Dom or heard about him or knew anything about him. I was there to see Steve Smith and Louis Belson, going to be honest. I didn't know who Dom was, but I knew that Dom was a big figure in the drumming world. Even at that time, Dom was big in the drumming world. So after watching him play, I was like just enthralled with his playing. He was an amazing drummer, a very musical and tons of chops, groove. I mean, he had it all. And his solo was really inspiring. But what happened after was his talk. When he spoke to the crowd, I remember sitting there mesmerized thinking, there's something special about this man. There's something different about this man. I can't put my finger on it yet. I'm not sure what it is, but I want to find out. So at the end of the clinic, you get a chance to meet everybody. It was awesome meeting Louis Belson, meeting Steve Smith, who I later also took some lessons with. And then, of course, meeting Dom. And when you met Dom, meeting Dom for the first time is an experience, because unlike other people, quite frankly, a lot of people are dismissive, especially stars. They meet you, "Oh, thanks for coming. Thanks for listening to my drumming. Thanks for listening to my music." They shake your hand, they sign a drum head, and off you go. Dom? No, he wanted to know about you. What's your name? Where are you from? Who do you like? Who's your favorite drummer? Who have you studied with? Like, just a question. He was asking me more questions than I was asking him. And I thought, who does this? Who does this? So I inquired with him at that time about the possibility of some lessons. So he gave me some information, and then he said, contact this person who turned out to be his wife. She was his secretary, Charmaine. And Charmaine, also an awesome, awesome lady. I'll talk a little bit more about Charmaine a little later. But anyways, that was the first time I met him, and I went about my business. Now, at that time, I was in music school, and I was very busy with studying with all these different people in music school. And I didn't follow up at that time with Dom. It wasn't until years later in the early 2000s or mid 2000s, I'm not sure exactly when, I think around maybe 2005 or 6, something like that, I finally did contact Dom through his then website. And he had that website I think he still has that website up and running, domfamularo.com, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, you can't take lessons with him anymore, but you can still buy his merch, which I'm wearing one of Dom's hats. I also have a t-shirt. I don't have it on currently, but there's a Dom t-shirt. And on the back of the t-shirt, one of Dom's most famous sayings, tension is the enemy of movement. And I use that with my students, and I use that saying in all my teaching. Tension is the enemy of movement. Dom was all about sitting up straight, breathing properly, and being very fluid and loose, really loose when you're playing, super loose. And I really bought into Dom's teaching system, and he changed my playing immensely, immensely.
Pull this muscle to pull that finger in. So if you have to pull that finger in and you hold that there, you are giving a command right now to hold that finger in. It doesn't normally want to go in, but you're commanding it to do that. That's tension. That's what we got to remove out of your hands. That's the first thing I noticed when you played for me before. When I saw your hands working well, but you're still working too hard to achieve that.
Okay.
You're using 10 pounds of energy to get 20 pounds of results. And I'm saying we're going to use 1 pound of energy to get 30 pounds of results.
Okay.
That's what these guys showed me. So they're in this motion now. So when you flip the stick in your hand, when it flips.
So the first time I met Dom, I went to his home in Port Jefferson, New York, and it's not far from New York City. It's actually very close to Long Island, New York. And I did a 4-hour drum lesson. Now, can you imagine a 4-hour drum lesson? I was completely exhausted by the end of it, but Dom had energy for days. Dom had so much energy, so much motivational spirit. He was so inspiring. It was unbelievable. It was amazing that he never got tired. I remember him telling me a story about how people that would come along with him on these various tours that he did around the world, they would get so tired out and so exhausted, they just could not keep up to the man. He was unbelievably fit, and he could just, his energy level was so high, he'd just go, go, go. And he was always so excited about teaching and drumming. I never saw him in a depleted state. Now, here's I'm sure he's a human being. Of course he was, but I just never saw him like that, hardly at all. So I'll tell you a funny story, though, quickly. Dom, I remember thinking to myself when I first met him, there's no way this guy can be this happy and be this up and this energetic all the time. And a lot of people wonder about that. I've had a lot of questions over the years about that. Truth is, he was exactly the way he presented himself. From the day that I met him, which was, I was close to him for 16 years, but I met him, 25, 30 years ago. That's when I actually met him. But I didn't actually start to get to know him and study with him and become his friend and all that until much, much later in the mid 2000s. But people always want to know, is Dom the real deal? Is this really the way he is or the way he was? And the answer is yes. He was always happy. He was always upbeat. And I remember asking him one day, Dom, how do you maintain this level of energy and this level of being so happy all the time? And he said to me, and again, Dom was one of these people that he would say things, and it was like everything was always inspirational. Everything always stuck because it was always like, I can't, what's he going to say next? You know, it was one of those things where you were so excited to hear what he had to say. And what he said to me was, when you wake up in the morning, you have a choice. You can get out of bed and you can be miserable. You can be angry at the world. You can be hateful. It's all in your heart. Or you can wake up and be happy, look to a new day, be thankful you're alive, and want to be good and kind to people. And in his case, motivated to inspire the world to play
I
drums.
never let myself get cranky. Getting cranky is almost like an excuse for like, you know, that doesn't show gratitude and that doesn't show humility.
Yeah.
To get cranky, what's going to make me cranky? If I wake up and I'm tired, well, I'm a little tired, so I'm still going to have a great day. What happens if this becomes my last day in life?
Right.
And if I'm cranky and it's my last day of life, I'm going to be pretty annoyed that my last day of my life I ended up allowing myself to be cranky.
Yeah.
So I'm going to allow myself only to be happy and positive every day. And my wife does this so well. She's always that way. It's so great to see. And with that, listen, if it is my last day on this earth, I'm going to go out smiling and happy in a win-win scenario.
Right.
That even though I might not have been finished with my chores that I have on this earth, I gave it my best shot, and I'm going out thumbs up.
And I never, ever forgot him saying that. I always thought, wow, that is so true. He had this theory, excuse me, about depression and stuff, that a lot of depression is chemical oriented and whatnot, and all that's been proven. But then there's people that are just miserable people by choice. So in other words, you can sometimes, not always, there's always that chemical depression thing. But there are times and there are people that can choose when they get up every day. They don't have a chemical imbalance. They just choose to be miserable. Or you can choose to be wonderful, inspiring, happy. You want to greet the day and you're excited that you're alive. That was Dom. He greeted every day with this motivational, happy, what's next on the agenda for me, you know? And his ability to maintain that was natural. There was nothing fake about it. Every time I was with him, I spent days and days with him. It wasn't like I only saw him for a couple hours and that was it, and I didn't see him for another 2-3 weeks or whatever. Sometimes what would happen is Dom would come to Canada and he would be in Ontario, around where I live, Toronto, sometimes as far as Montreal, go into Quebec, Ontario and Quebec mainly. And he would hire me as his assistant. So I would go with Dom and he would do these master classes and clinics, and I would be his helper. At the master classes, I was his actual teaching assistant. Dom would be up on a stage or up on an area, higher, and he would be teaching the lesson, and I would walk around to all the students and show them the things that Dom is doing on the stage and correct their technique, adjust things. If they're doing the molar stroke, I would quickly go around. Now, a few of the clinics, they were massive amount of people, master classes. Some of the master classes were a massive amount of people. And I couldn't always get to everybody. So I remember saying to Dom, like, we need to put a cap on these numbers. I know, so he's like, but I want to meet so many people. He was always excited to meet everybody. But at the same time, it was impossible for me as an assistant to get around to everybody. Sometimes I could only spend a couple seconds with each person just because there were so many people. So Dom started doing slightly smaller master classes. So let me clarify the difference between a master class and a clinic, because he did both. He was the world's greatest clinician. He was also the world's greatest teacher. So you put those two together and you've got brilliance and magic. So a clinic is when people pay money and they go and they sit in a chair and they just watch the drummer play. It's just drums. Sometimes they play with songs. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's just a solo. Sometimes the drummer teaches, but you're not actively engaged. You're just watching. You're not a student. And at the end of the clinic, there's usually prizes, and then you get a chance to meet the musician, and you can talk to them for a couple minutes and whatever. So Dom always looked forward to that. As a matter of fact, Dom did something that nobody else would do. He would go out and meet people lined up. Imagine that. Before they've even gotten into the venue, wherever it is that Dom's doing the clinic, he would go out in the line and meet people and shake their hands and introduce them and engage himself with every single person. I remember him telling me one time he was in China, 5,000 people attending his clinic. He went out and introduced and met everyone. And at one point, people had to come out and say, Dom, you got to come in now. The clinic's going to start. He was late for his own clinic because he was outside meeting the people who were going to attend it. This was the kind of person that he was. So the clinic is educational, but non-interactive. A master class, you're a student. You're there with a pad, usually. If you go to Thomas Lang's clinic, it's an electronic drum kit, but master class, Thomas Lang's master class, most drummers do a pad thing. That's what most guys do. Occasionally, there's a full pad setup with bass drum and everything, but you never ever do a master class with a live kit. There'll be one live kit, but it's usually just the teacher, whoever that person is. Now, I personally have done lots of clinics, and I've done a ton of master classes. And like I said, I would do the master classes with Dom. Dom would also get me on stage to at the drum kit to demonstrate things while he would talk. He would talk through, different techniques and different grooves and whatever, and he would get me to play them. So it was a thrill for me to be involved with Dom at his master classes and some of his clinics. Like I said, only when he was in my local area. I didn't travel the world with him. I never went to China, nothing like that. He was on his own there, or he had a different assistant maybe over there. I'm not sure. But it was incredible to spend time with him. So I would spend days and days and days with him because we would go out on these little mini tours of him doing master classes and clinics. Sometimes it was a string of master classes. Sometimes it was master classes and clinics, and sometimes it was just clinics. It was a variety of things. But when I was with him, he was always the same all the time. And it didn't matter if it was late at night or early in the morning. He didn't have mood swings. I mean, the man would get tired. He's a human being. But even when he was tired, he was never nasty. He was never mean. He was always fun and good-spirited. And how many of us can actually say that we can maintain that and be like that? It's almost impossible. If you are like that, you're acting. A lot of performers act. Dom was the absolute real deal. There was no acting. He was the way he was all the time. I can't emphasize that enough. Now, Dom did so much for me. It's just, like I said, this video is too short for me to get into it all. But I'm going to attach a video at the end of a video that Dom did for me to advertise me, because he was like, Tim, you need more students. You're an amazing teacher. You need more students. So he, on his own, I didn't even ask him to do it. He did this video up. You can see it at the end. I'll put it on the end of this video. And he sent it to me and said, here, Tim, put this out on YouTube. Put this out on Facebook. Put this out on Instagram. The world needs to know about you. And, it's like, thanks, Dom. Like, amazing. Just incredible. The world's greatest drum teacher doing a video promoting me. I was so in awe of him. And I was always so humbled to be around him. That was another thing. No ego from this guy. World's greatest teacher, one of the finest drummers you'll ever meet, student of Buddy Rich, knew every drummer on the frickin' planet. He had a story about everybody. Name a drummer, he'll tell you a story about them. He was unbelievable, but no ego. And he always wanted to know about you. Anytime he engaged somebody, I can remember being in a coffee shop with him. There's an old lady there, giving up his chair for the old lady, which we should have done anyways. But that's just the person that he was. He cared about people. He legitimately cared about people. And it's so sad that he had to die at such a young age of 70, because he still had so much more, in my opinion, to give to the world. Now, it's emotional for me, guys. I'm not going to lie. Dom and I were so close. I miss him. I think about him every day. I went through a phase when he first died where I was thinking, oh, I got to text Dom. Oh, I can't text Dom. I have contacted Dom's wife, Charmaine, awesome lady, a few times. I plan to go and um, visit her. I unfortunately was unable to go to the celebration of life that they had for Dom. I couldn't attend, but I understand there could be another one, and I'm really desperately hoping that I can go to that. I'm waiting for Charmaine to contact me about that, and I will try my damnedest to be there because it's an incredible thing to go to a celebration of life for somebody of Dom's caliber. When I went to his birthday party last August 2023, anybody who's anybody in the drumming business was there. But there was no ego. Dom wouldn't tolerate that. We're all equals. People were excited to meet me. And of course, I was excited to meet legends of drumming. But they were just as excited to meet me, which my son was like, how the hell do they know who you are? Well, Dom would talk about his various students to different drummers. So these guys actually came up to me. Are you Tim Connolly? Yeah, I am. And of course, I knew exactly who they were. And it's like, how the hell did they? Even I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. I found out later is because Dom would talk about his students that he would always say I was one of his top students from Canada. And he would talk about me all the time. I remember watching videos of Dom being interviewed and my name would come up in the video. And I'm just like, what the hell? Like, unbelievable. Yeah, I have this student in Canada and he's doing this, this, and this. And see, another thing that Dom used to do, especially for me, this is why he would bring me up, is he would do master classes for my students, only my students. So he would either come here, he didn't come here a lot to do that, but when he was here doing his master classes, he would do master classes for my students. The other thing he would do is he would do Zoom master classes for my students right in this basement here. I would clear everything out, set up 15 pads, and 15 of my students would do a clinic. I have a huge TV over here, a giant TV. Dom would be on that TV teaching the lesson via Zoom, and I would be wandering around doing my thing, getting the students to do the lesson. And Dom would do it in Zoom.
As the blood flows into your arms, it begins to relax your arms. As it begins to relax your arms, the muscles start to stretch. As the muscles stretch, they get stronger. A longer muscle is a stronger muscle. So an exercise like this, playing this here, is actually very good. So we're going to try something now. We're going to try that same pattern.
Mainly Zoom, just because he was so busy, it was hard for him to actually do a master class specifically for me, but he did. He still took the time to do it. This was a truly incredible experience for my students, and I would hype them up. You have to understand, this guy is the top dog. This is the best drum teacher you're ever going to see. You've got to attend. And all my students, I could only fit 15 of them in here, so all of them couldn't attend. But all that, the first 15, and they would sell out quick, they would want to be at this clinic because I would hype it up. I remember one time when Dom called me up and said, hey, I'm going to be in Modern Drummer magazine in a month or two, and you really need to check that issue out. And I'm like, yeah, congratulations. That's awesome. Good for you. I will definitely check it out. And he says, yeah, you really need to check it out. There's something really special in there. I'm like, okay. So when the edition came out, I was excited to see Dom on the cover of Modern Drummer magazine. Fantastic. And basically what Dom had done was he had basically compiled a list by country of who he considered to be the best drum teachers in the world. Now, some of them he taught, some of them he hadn't, but he knew all of them, and he compiled a list. Lo and behold, I check in Canada, there's my name on the list. I couldn't believe it. Dom put me in his list of who he considered to be the top drum teachers in the world, and I made the list in Canada. So to say that I was thrilled and happy, I never asked him to do that. Again, it was a situation where Dom giving to other people. This is the way that he always was. So this is a celebration of Dom today, but it's also a sad day because I've been thinking about him a lot today. I sent some things to Charmaine, my condolences. I sent a picture of Charmaine and him together, a beautiful picture that I took of the two of them when I was at Dom's birthday party. And while it is a sad day for all of us in the drumming world and all of us that knew the man, it is a sad day. It's also a day to reflect and say, what an incredible human being that blessed this earth. We were blessed by having Dom here. And I'm going to end it on that. Thanks very much for watching. Please comment. Stick around. Do not shut this video off. I got a couple things at the end. I want to put Dom's final statement. I'm going to put that up when he was dying and he knew he was going to die. And I spoke to him just a few days before he actually died. He put out a final statement. I'm going to put the statement in. I'm also going to put that video that I mentioned about Dom talking about me, because that video I cherish like you wouldn't believe. Just incredible. And always remember, tension is the enemy of movement. And Dom's other saying, onward and upward. Thanks very much for watching. As always, keep drumming, keep Dom in your heart.
Hi, I'm Dom Famularo, and I'm very excited to talk about Tim Connolly. What a fantastic student, teacher, and musician. As a student, he has studied with me, and it's been extremely exciting to have him come down to my studio. And then we've done continued lessons on Skype where he lives in Canada. This is so exciting that we have the internet to help us with 21st century learning. Tim has learned all the different styles. We've worked on the Billy Gladstone finger techniques, the George Lawrence Stone's wrist and rebound techniques, and of course the Sanford Moeller whipping technique, which Tim has down so very well. And this is important to understand this here because Tim, as a teacher, is teaching this stuff out of his home. He's got a great studio, and what's fantastic about it is I've been able to do some master classes with him to meet many of his students via the internet. This is so exciting and huge. Only out of the mind of Tim could he pull this off and have this kind of fun. I think you would have great lessons with him. Sit down, learn the material, get excited about it, play drums, and I look forward to someday to doing some master classes and seeing you in those classes. Thanks so much. I'll see you real soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.